what do we want this host to do? So what I like to do after the bullets is say, I think your audience would really benefit from these lessons, and I would love to be a guest on your show. So be very clear. And then you have to make an ask. I love to say, are you interested? Are you interested is a wonderful ask because it gives them the opportunity to say no, but most of the time they're going to say yes or maybe or I need more information or let's fill out this form, whatever. But you want to give them every opportunity to say yes.
You're listening to the 7-Figure Leap podcast. We're here to leverage rich relationships and smart strategies to take your business to the next level. Here's your host, Dustin Riechman.
Welcome back to the 7-Figure Leap podcast. Today, I want to get extremely tactical with you. I'm going to walk you through exactly how to create a pitch that gets well in excess of 50% acceptance rate to cold outreach, specifically on podcast. Okay, so if you've been in this industry a while, you have any kind of online business, probably even if you don't, if you're on the internet, you probably get really crappy pitches all the time, right? And so these are cold, they're impersonal, they're sometimes visually unappealing. The things that come to mind are like, hey, Dustin, I would really like, your help with this thing, and it's like in a different font. Okay, so how do we break through this incredibly nasty noise that's out there in the market and actually get people that we respect to respond to us in a positive way and have them say resounding yes to having us on their podcast? So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to walk you through our perfect podcast pitch template. I literally just hung up from our Podcast Profits Accelerator program. We just did a session on this where I was teaching this, and then we were workshopping through individuals on their pitches. And so I'm going to give you access to a tool so that you can follow along. So if you go to 7figureleap.com/playbook, 7figureleap.com/playbook, do that right now. Pause this, go do that, because what I'd love for you to do is download our template and you can follow along as I teach you. This is a Google Doc. It is literally the template we use when we pitch podcasts to get really high acceptance rates and to build amazing relationships with people who don't yet know us. It's got the actual templates that you can copy and paste, and it's got numerous examples of people that have used this, including myself, to get on really top podcasts. So hopefully you have that in front of you, but whether you do or not, I want you to think of this pitch in 3 distinct components. Okay, so we're going to think of this first as just an email. I'll talk about how to use this in other formats, but let's just talk about creating one email that is your master pitch. This email is going to be consisting of 3 parts. So the top part of the email, right after the subject line, is going to be what we call a relational anchor. The middle part of the email is going to be your compelling bullet points. And the third part of the email is going to be your close, right? It's your call to action. So I'm going to go through these individually and talk about how to craft an amazing pitch. So the first thing we want to do is a relational anchor. So the whole purpose of a relational anchor is to let the recipient know you're not a random weirdo from the internet, that you respect them, that you know who they are as a person, and that they should keep reading the email. That's really it, right? This is going to be a couple lines to open the email. So what's a relational anchor look like? It can be a personal connection. Hey, we both went to the same college. We both live in the same state. I noticed you used to be an engineer, and so did I. It could be something like that you could know by looking at their podcast bio or looking at their LinkedIn profile. Most of the time, it's even easier than that. Most of the time, what we're looking at for a podcast is referencing a specific episode of the podcast and talking about why it resonated with you. Right? So complimenting them, talking about how you think they're doing an awesome job, but not generically. Actually saying in episode 209, when Joe shared this amazing insight about his career, it really, struck a chord with me and it made me go take this action. That's the sort of thing we really want to do in that relational anchor. So that's it, right? So they open email, they read that first couple lines. They're like, this is a human. This person actually knows something about me. This is not one of these cold junky outreach emails that I'm going to delete. So then we transition into the middle part of the email, which is in bullet point format a very clear description of how you can provide value to their audience. Okay. Now, there in the template, you're going to see things like where to use numbers and where to name processes and frameworks, where to reference a case study. So we can get very specific and tactical. This is very much an art and science because, it's copywriting. And so you're going to spend some effort writing really compelling bullet points. And when people read these bullet points, we want them to have a reaction of, wow, I'm curious about that. And wow, I think my audience would love this. And I got to know more. And so that's really what these are all about. So in the example I give you, you're going to see, lots of applications of this. But as I look over and I think about this, you can do things so what do I mean by a number? I'll just go through each of these elements really quickly. So rather than saying how to improve your health, you could say how to reduce your resting heart rate by 12 beats per minute. Okay. So like specificity, a number is going to be way more compelling. A percentage, a number of dollars that maybe a strategy that you want to teach is generated for your company, a percentage of improvement, those sort of things. So that's what we mean by number. What do we mean by name? It could be a person's name, but usually what we're going to do is like name a process. So a client of mine named Maggie, she works in strategic planning for communities. And so we're having a discussion and she's like, how to use, really robust community planning strategy to get engagement from the residents. I'm like, that's okay, but like, can we name that? And she's like, yeah, like I call it a community blueprint, or and I'm like, that's way better, right? A compression planning framework, even better. So how to use a compression planning framework to get great interaction with your residents. Like you put capital letters at the first, compression planning framework, CPF, and it's like an acronym now, right? Like it's a thing. And so you can name that. Many of you probably already have a framework. You have something that you teach in your coaching or consulting practice. And we want to use that specific name because it sticks out. You can make it bold in the message, and it just really induces curiosity. So number 3 would be a case study or a client example. So how the city of Toledo used our process to get a 40% increase in community engagement, right? And so it's a specific example. It could be your own story. How I traveled to 22 countries in 2023 as a digital nomad by using this strategy. Okay, it's things like that. Specificity, curiosity inducing. People can see it and know immediately there's got to be a story here, and I would love to hear this story. And then the final thing that you could include in these bullets would be a reference or an allusion to your lead magnet, right? So the thing when you do the interview, at the end of the interview, the call to action you want to make to the audience. So a lot of times that's a free resource. So 7figureleap.com/playbook is our Podcast Profits Playbook. It includes these templates that I'm talking about. So if I was writing to a podcast host and I wanted to include that for their audience, the last bullet point I might include is how your audience can use the Podcast Profits Playbook to get on 67% of podcasts that they'd like to be featured on. And then put in parentheses, I'd love to give this as a free gift to your audience. So now it not only shows value you're going to provide, but it shows the host that like you have an actual tangible gift or asset that you're going to give the audience. So that's the bullet points. The bullet points are the most work. The good news is the bullet points are largely going to be recycled. So as long as you stay in the same target market, you can talk about a lot of the same things, right? So you write these bullet points one time and they can continue to be used over and over. And they're probably 80% of the effort here. So that's the good news. You're going to customize that top part, the relational anchor each time, but the bullet points you're going to continue to be able to use over and over. And then the last part of the email, which many people forget or miss, is a clear call to action. What do we want this host to do? So what I like to do after the bullets is say, I think your audience would really benefit from these lessons, and I would love to be a guest on your show. So be very clear. And then you have to make an ask. I love to say, are you interested? Are you interested is a wonderful ask because it gives them the opportunity to say no, but most of the time they're going to say yes, or maybe, or I need more information, or let's fill out this form, whatever. But you want to give them the every opportunity to say yes. And so, are you interested? It can be a really strong call to action. And then a simple close like, all my best, Dustin. And then maybe you have a one single link to your website or your LinkedIn. Okay, so that is the master template. Relationship anchor, bullet points of how you're going to give benefits to their audience, and then a simple call to action. So that's the email in this case. And if you're going to send an email, you need a subject line. Subject line kind of follows the same philosophy. If you're going to reference a specific episode, that's a great subject line. So if in that relational anchor, if you're like, hey, episode 209 really meant a lot to me, then simply make the subject line episode 209. And I guarantee you most hosts are going to see that and be like, I need to know what's in this message, because maybe there's some controversy or someone wants to be a sponsor or they need to get a hold of my guest. And so that's really all you need to know. In our accelerator, we talk about how to find the right email addresses, how to do follow-up, best practices, beyond this, but that's the structure. So I hope if all that you take out of this episode is how to write more compelling emails and pitches, you've got that. And specifically sending this to podcast hosts has transformed the lives of myself and all of our clients. We use this every day. So that's the email. Now, you may think, I'm not really an email person, or more importantly, my audience or these hosts I want to reach aren't really email people. Email can be a noisy channel. So why would I write this whole email if I'm not going to send an email? Well, it actually creates a wonderful master template to use in other ways too. So imagine you would rather be on LinkedIn and you want to send direct messages on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook or whatever social platform your host is on. You take the exact same words and you simply send it in bite-sized chunks. So the first message on LinkedIn would be that relational anchor. Hey, Joe, love the work you're doing. And I really like this episode 209 where Jill shared this thing. It meant a lot to me. Keep up the good work. You're not making any ask in a initial direct message. When they respond and say, thank you so much, like, we really appreciate that feedback, then you say, I have, in a second message, I have a idea for your show. Is it okay if I share that? Oh, of course. And then the bullet points come out, right? Like, here's the value I can provide your audience. And then are you interested in having me on? The other way you could use this is in video. So a lot of times video is, if you're going for sort of a higher quality, lower volume approach to this, video is awesome. So you could be a selfie video that might be more appropriate for like Instagram. On LinkedIn, something I like to use if I'm reaching out to a podcast or other partners or things like that is a Loom video. So, Loom is just a screen recording application that I can use on my computer. And what I'll do then is have the episode up on my desktop. So like episode 209 is actually sitting there on the screen, and then me in a little call out bubble, a little video of my face saying the same thing, right? So, hey, Joe, I really appreciated this episode. Like I just finished it and Jill shared this insight. And it really meant a lot to me. Like, keep up the good work. And so sending that video is going to get really high response rates. It's more work than a standard email, but again, for sort of a high value host relationship, this could be awesome. You could also do that as a voice text. So LinkedIn supports 60-second audio messages as an example. Hey, Joe, I just listened to this, so it's the same thing. So the idea is to create a master template, and then you can use this in various ways to do outreach. And so what you're really trying to get to is what is truly, by definition, cold outreach, because the person doesn't know you. They're not necessarily expecting this message, but it doesn't feel like cold outreach. It feels like a real human cares about me, respects my work, has value to add to my audience, and wants to make a very simple and clear ask of whether they can be featured on my platform. And when you take this approach and you're looking at this, how I can provide value to the host and their audience, and you're doing it in a way that follows this very simple but compelling framework, I guarantee you it will greatly increase the response rates that you're getting. So that's my tactical episode today. I want to really share the podcast pitch template and this approach that we use to doing warm outreach to cold audiences and to cold podcast hosts. And I hope that you take advantage of the tool that I shared, 7figureleap.com/playbook. You're going to get these templates. You can literally open up a copy in your own Google Docs, copy, paste, follow the examples we use, and shortcut yourself on your way to success. If you are interested in our help with this, of course, this is one small part of what we do in our Podcast Profits Accelerator program, where we work with people over 90 days. This is 1 week of the 12 that we co-create people's pitches and help them create just like the best pitch ever. And we actually now have a Dustin AI. It's an AI tool that's been trained with thousands of hours of pitches and coaching and critiques. So people can plug that in, or I can plug that in on their behalf and give them a ready to go pitch, and then have the human, optimization on top of it. So anyway, the Podcast Profits Accelerator is the place to be if you want to grow your business with podcast guesting. And a very important part, the third P in our 5P framework, is pitching. And I just shared with you one of our great tools on how to do that well. So I hope that's helpful to you. Let me know if you have other questions about this, or if you have other very tactical episodes that you'd like for me to hop on and produce. And I would love to do that for you. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next episode here at 7 Figure Leap.